WWT presents Experts.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble, as usual. So, given that managing and manipulating massive data sets is critical to their businesses, life sciences organizations have been at the forefront of artificial intelligence, the artificial AI revolution, since really well before the rest of us even declared that there was a revolution going on a couple years ago. In this episode, we're going to talk about how artificial intelligence is affecting the life sciences industry. And we've got two experts with us, one from WWT Technology and another from a key partner of ours, NVIDIA. And we're going to be discussing how life sciences organizations can maximize the value of AI throughout their development life cycles. All right, so first up with us is Dr. Sanaz Cordes, who is Chief Healthcare Advisor and Global Life Sciences Practice Lead here at WWT Technology. Dr. Cordes began her career as a physician and a medical director with Providence Health. Since then, she's been an entrepreneur, an investor, a venture advisor, and an industry expert in both the healthcare and life sciences space. We're delighted to have her with us here today to talk about all that's going on with AI in life sciences. Also with us today is Rory Kelleher, Global Business Development Lead for Healthcare and Life Sciences at NVIDIA, which again is one of WWT's key top partners. Rory leads NVIDIA's efforts to transform R&D and accelerate progress across pharmaceuticals and genomics within life sciences. As such, he's guiding strategy and partnerships to really accelerate those AI-powered solutions throughout the life sciences industry. And given his passion for all this stuff, we're really delighted that he's here with us today. So, welcome, both of you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Happy, wonderful to be here. Dr. Cordes, honored to share a virtual stage with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate you both being here. All right, well, so now let's jump right in. So what are some of the most significant ways that AI is transforming the life sciences industry today?
Yeah, I can dive in on this. I think a couple of years ago, you might have asked me this exact question. And I think our conversation was really focused on R&D, particularly early R&D, because they were the groundbreakers for demonstrating AI and its success. But I'd say in the last couple of years here at WWT, we're really seeing our clients embrace AI and all the other lines of business, and that's been really exciting. For example, in the commercial marketing sales organizations, we're working with a client in the space right now on an initiative, but across the board, we're seeing things like how can we leverage more advanced AI solutions to solve for things that maybe to date have been subpar. For example, the omni-channel digital approach across the industry coming out of the pandemic, as we all know, hasn't really hit the mark yet. So how can we, do more personalized messaging, content recommendation, and campaigns and such to make that engagement with the healthcare providers more sticky? And then similarly for patients and potential patients, right, consumers, how do we provide the right educational content and precision sort of knowledge that would make them have more brand loyalty? And for those that are on the medications, how can we help them stay on their medications as needed, right? Like with adherence type options. So yeah, so like within the commercial organization a couple of years ago, we really weren't doing much around AI, and now heavily getting traction there. I guess regulatory and compliance divisions. We've been working with those folks for a few years now, using baby steps like NLP and things like that to sort of comb through the tons of content that requires being combed through to do their jobs. But now leveraging more advanced computer vision and Gen AI and machine learning solutions to do things like, basically to accelerate and augment the things they do, like filings and submission responses and things like that. And then for manufacturing and supply chain, smart factory obviously has been a thing. We've been supporting clients with IoT enablement and telemetry. But to date, I think we've only, scraped the surface on that. So how are we bringing in sort of, again, more advanced analytics and big data tools to optimize, processes better, reduce waste more, increase productivity, be a little bit more, proactive and sort of analytics and forecasting for inventory and shortage control and things like that. And then obviously, leaving the best for last in terms of the fact that, they were the pioneers, early drug discovery. And Rory, I'd love for you to chime in here, but that continues to accelerate. We're, Gen AI from like design, target identification, all the things that we know that we've been doing and doing well, it continues to escalate. And then new things that are exciting to me. Again, you mentioned I'm a physician by trade, so the advances in like predictive toxicology and, using AI to identify biomarkers, those are all great things that have, come on the path in the last few years. But I don't know if Rory, you want to add anything around just the R&D space in general with AI?
Yeah, it's a great lead in, Dr. Cordes. So thanks for that. I think you're spot on in the sense that, we'll talk about where we're seeing a lot of adoption of artificial intelligence in the biopharma industry today. But I think the greatest potential for this industry, where it takes 10 years and $1 billion to bring a drug to market, is in the areas where AI is just now starting to be applied, which is one, figuring out like what is the causal biology that is driving the disease, so that we can build a therapy that actually addresses the challenge in the first place. And two is you can do everything right in early discovery and up until clinical trials, but once you introduce a drug into the patient's body, that's where kind of all bets are off. Like, we don't necessarily know what's going to happen there. And so I think the key words that you used are using AI to get closer to predictive toxicology in silico, before perhaps even going to animal testing, and certainly before going into human testing. I think those are massive opportunities. And we're just excited. We think every industry is going to be transformed by artificial intelligence, and every industry is becoming a technology industry. And what greater problem does humanity have than conquering disease? And so, this is what motivates myself, my colleagues here at NVIDIA, and really the entire ecosystem of, drug hunters and AI machine learners that are spending time on this space. And so we're excited to see the momentum, and I think we're still really just in the early innings.
Well, between the two of you, you talked about lots of different areas where AI is making a difference here. But Rory, I'm curious, as you look across the life sciences value chain, where are you seeing the most mature and kind of widespread adoption of AI? Is it machine learning, natural language processing, Gen AI? Like, what are the things that are going on there that's most mature, and where do you see the biggest opportunities?
Yeah, where we've been spending our time, I would say, over the past 3 years or so, where a vast majority of the computational cycles and applications of Gen AI in pharma have been is in early discovery, right? And the opportunity is to take what has largely been a artisanal, very wet lab oriented approach, which is drug discovery, and transform it into an engineering discipline, which is drug design. And so because of these self-supervised models, whether they be large language models or diffusion models, they are able to learn the languages of biology and chemistry to a point where you can almost prompt them similar to how you prompt a ChatGPT. And what they are these molecular compilers. They can return a molecule, whether it be a large molecule or a small molecule or some other type of modality that has the desired characteristics that you're looking for to address the causal biology that we mentioned before, and is going to be a safe and effective, within the human body. So that really has been, I would say, a vast majority of where our time is spent, and we are building domain-specific platforms that make it easier for organizations to build, adapt, fine-tune, and deploy generative AI applications across a variety of different early discovery use cases. I think also in early discovery, another application that we've seen really take off is the use of large language models to automate certain research tasks or be like a research assistant. And so if you think about a researcher's job, they have to keep up with tens of thousands of pieces of literature that are published every year. And that is just, I mean, I read a little bit, but I don't think even the best readers can read that much, right? And so what if you had a research assistant that read all the publications, all of PubMed, additional information both inside of your organization and out, and could return to you the most relevant information for the drug program that you're working on, cutting down your research time significantly. And so we're starting to see that like research cycles are improving, 1, 2, 3 orders of magnitude from what has traditionally been happening, in just manual approaches. Mm-hmm. And then in the clinical development space, I think this is where there are massive opportunities in the near term, especially because of generative AI and large language models. Clinical trials is the most expensive and most time-consuming part of bringing a drug to market. And modern large language models can do anything from help generate regulatory submissions. They can help automate operating procedures for when you're initially setting up a clinical trial, anything from site selection to patient recruitment to patient retention to training the nurses at the clinical trial sites. And so we're seeing a really big push into this world of agentic workflows that can do more than just return information from a prompt, but can actually call tools, call other language models, and really automate end-to-end tasks that traditionally have been very time-consuming and very human capital intensive. And so I think this is just an incredible opportunity for the entire industry at large, and we're really excited to see the momentum.
Mm-hmm. Sanaz, I wonder if you have any insights there you'd like to share to build on that, or other things that you're seeing in terms of the, where the most mature or widespread adoption is happening in the value chain.
Yeah, no, I think Rory did an excellent job covering that. I just want to kind of double down on the clinical trials component as well, because just the advances of, I started my career years ago before even going into practice doing research and clinical trial work at an institution. And just seeing the ability that we can, not only predict who's going to be a good candidate, but now do sort of proactive monitoring and real-time surveillance to anticipate risk of someone not, staying adherent or even being lost from the trial. Like Rory says, that's a financial game changer, when you're looking at these cohorts. So very, very much in support of all those statements that were made.
Mm-hmm. Matt, you didn't ask the question, but I'll maybe just hint at 2 areas that I think are going to be exciting over the next, call it 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
One is, I mentioned the AI research assistant using large language models to automate certain tasks like literature synthesis and so on. What the next version of language models will be able to do is be more than just an assistant and actually be a thought partner to scientists. And what I mean by that is they're going to be able to study electronic laboratory notebooks. They're going to be able to learn from experiments that have been done in the past to a point where they can now generate hypotheses, design experiments, and in fact be connected to a fully programmable robotic lab. So to the point where you have this very low latency feedback loop between hypothesis generation and experiment results, which can help you navigate through chemical or biological space a lot quicker. And so that is one area that I think we'll see over the next 12 to 18 months really start to take root. And then the other is, with all the advancements in embodied AI and robotics, manufacturing is ripe for innovation in the sense that many pharma companies are spending billions of dollars setting up new plants to be able to keep pace with the demand of some of these either GLP-1s or other types of biologics. And so whether it be through the use of digital twins or through the use of robotics that can actually manipulate scientific instruments in a similar manner to the way that humans do today, we think that is also kind of the next frontier for where artificial intelligence is going to have a really meaningful impact on the pharma value chain.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing that, the opportunity here is both in terms of the speed of activity that goes through these pipelines in life sciences, also the volume of R&D work that you can do and the expansiveness of that space too. It's great that it's both of those things. And that, leads me to think about, the tremendous volumes of data it takes to do this, the amount of infrastructure organizations have to put in place, and also the talent considerations that life sciences organizations have to do this. So Rory, I'm curious, how are you seeing companies address, those areas of their business to really unlock the full potential of AI?
Yeah, good question. I think, let's start with data. I think Big Pharma has two challenges when it comes to data. One is a data readiness problem, and the other is a data scarcity problem. And so let me start with data scarcity, because I think this is really important in AI. In artificial intelligence, data is your source code. And what we're seeing is a new breed of scientific companies, drug discovery companies, that are taking data generation seriously and embedding it at the core of what they do. And so they are scaling up robotic labs that can generate data at an industrialized scale, which is generating the source code that can feed your artificial intelligence to help you do things like target discovery or molecular generation or a variety of different other types of drug discovery related tasks. And so that approach, I think, is something that every pharmaceutical company and certainly many future tech bio companies are going to have to take, because today's AIs are the worst they'll ever be. The more data you feed it, the better they get. These are learning systems. The more they can learn from, the more capable they are. And so I think that's one thing from a data scarcity standpoint. The other is a data readiness problem. Some of these large pharmaceutical companies have been around for 100, 150 years plus and are sitting on absolute gold mines of data. The challenge is they're all over the place. They're not prepared for AI. And so somebody within the organization, typically this falls upon a chief data officer, has to go through the unglorious, hard, but essential work to curate the data sets, tag, label the data sets, get them ready to be ingested by these large scale models to a point where they can be useful in driving value from downstream tasks. And so I think that in combination with talent, I actually don't think that pharmaceutical companies are having that much challenge recruiting talent. They're all hiring chief AI officers from top academic institutions. And because they're either generating these massive data sets or have this incredible collection of patient and molecular data, this is a data scientist playground, right? If you have a sense of purpose around working on human health and drug discovery, what better place than a large pharma or a tech bio or a biotech company to go do artificial intelligence? And so I think there's obviously work that needs to be done in scaling and building up these teams. Talent is important, but we've seen many pharma companies actually be quite successful in recruiting the necessary talent.
Mm-hmm. And Sanaz, I want to kind of bring you into this question too, and start by asking, there's, my sense is life sciences organizations have always had to have a lot of infrastructure. So the idea of having robust infrastructure isn't new, but, how are you seeing the infrastructure related to AI advancing? And then also from your vantage point, what are you seeing in terms of both the challenges organizations have as well as the opportunities that they have with data, infrastructure, talent in this kind of work?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just, sort of augment, I agree with everything, Rory obviously just shared. Around the data piece, I mean, we could talk about data all day long at WWT. I mean, I would even venture to say we were kind of at the forefront of helping a lot of these customers kind of solve for these data readiness issues. And that does tie back obviously to infrastructure, which I could kind of touch on in a second. But I mean, just like when I look at just the foundational approach, right, just financial, beyond like what's the goal, what are the measurable impacts of the goal of this AI project, like the next step really is around that data piece, right? Like even where will my data and inference reside, right? How will I access the data? How do I overcome these silos? What kind of silos are they? Cultural, physical, security? And then to your point, if I have this goal and this is what I want the AI to impact, can my legacy systems of outdated infrastructure support it? Probably not. And then what does that mean, right? Like what do I need to do to modernize? And then what stepwise approach because you can't modernize everything everywhere all at once, right? So is it more important to look at, my cloud, my hybrid cloud, how I want to structure that? So there's a lot of stuff around data just to even get to, data governance, which, Rory mentioned. And I would say it's sort of like the year of data governance. Like data governance is finally getting the respect it deserves, right? Because it's usually kind of like an I don't even want to say afterthought, but an after reaction of when people start going down a project and realize it. But now, especially here at WWT, we're doing just standalone data governance engagements for these clients to just set them up for success. So huge emphasis on that. And then all of that then gets us ready for improving the data itself, right? The quality, the cleaning, the structuring, the standardization of the AI to get it ready to do what it needs to do. And I agree with Rory, most of the global organizations do have a lot of data talent. We do still see some gaps just around the data engineering experts, right? I think I'm learning even the last year and a half, there's such nuanced differences between the global sort of data science term. And so we're helping out a lot there, whether, it's upskilling or consulting or helping them recruit sort of the precision experts, that they need to execute on all these things.
One thing that I'll just add, because we've worked so closely with WWT on some of these types of projects, a lot of times we'll get a technology leader or executive come to us and say, what should my computing infrastructure look like to be able to unblock my AI or data science teams to be able to do the work that they need to do? And so we've been working really closely with leading pharmaceutical companies, tech bio companies, in building what is essentially going to be a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud type of infrastructure where you've got this consistent software layer, irrespective of where you run your workloads. Because NVIDIA is a full stack accelerated computing company, that platform is available everywhere. If you're using the NVIDIA software stack, whether it be CUDA or acceleration libraries or NeMo, which is our foundation modeling platform, or BioNeMo, which is our platform for drug discovery, those tools run everywhere, right? And so we're trying to enable a team and kind of right-size workloads depending upon cost and importance, and make sure that they have the necessary infrastructure available to them either on-premise or in the cloud or in multi-cloud.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rory, coming back to you, I wonder if you could share any specific examples of work that you've seen on the marketplace that NVIDIA's been a part of, or certain use cases around how life sciences companies have successfully scaled their infrastructure, their teams, their data to take advantage of AI and Gen AI.
Yeah, I'll give you one example, and it's one that I was kind of just shocked at the results of it. And it's funny because I've seen more and more results like this, and they continue to shock me. But we were working with a global top 10 pharmaceutical company who hired an AI leader that was kind of orchestrating some work in early discovery. This was in a large molecule discovery process. And they took what was previously a 9-month design, make, test, analyze process that was entirely in the wet lab. And they moved towards a lab in the loop kind of hybrid architecture, combining wet lab with a computational dry lab, used BioNeMo as our platform to help them adapt and train models using their own proprietary data, and took that design, make, test, analyze process that was 9 months and had I believe a 50% likelihood of the candidates progressing to the next phase onto a 3-month process with the likelihood of the candidates coming out of that pipeline that have a 90% success likelihood of moving to the next phase, right? And so what that has effectively done is cut the timelines down to 1/3 of the original and improve the likelihood almost 2x. And so that's just a kind of a case in point example of how the combination of scientists and machine learning scientists and AI algorithms and data can significantly reduce the times and increase the likelihood of success, if not across the entire value chain, certainly across these parts of the early discovery value chain. So that's just one example. I'm sure there's many others. Sanaz, anything that you would add there?
I mean, similar outcomes, similar story. We years ago, I mean, before AI even became a common household term, we helped develop the then largest AI clinical NLP model in the world, which enabled researchers to, reduce the time they spend culling through electronic records to identify a trial cohort. Again, hence my excitement around the clinical trial component of AI and all the things it's doing. But similarly there, it took that time from months to minutes. And I mean, this was just years ago, right? And so, I mean, we have ton of case studies I could talk about, but so starting from that and then modern day things that we're doing just even around computer vision, being able to help create a new job, as you mentioned, like for the computer to scan and do things that help set the next step up for more efficiency and better outcomes. We've done that with a large global organization. Things around radiomics, again, using computer vision to increase accuracy and improve reading time, by 20x. So just endless possibilities.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask a quick question about kind of regulatory environment, and one or both of you could answer that. So, obviously, life sciences operates within kind of a regulatory environment. It should. I'm curious whether you think that AI is helping organizations deal with that better, or is the regulatory environment sort of slowing things down, or what's the answer there?
Yeah, maybe I'll just quickly comment on this one. We had an AI summit in DC not too long ago where we sat down with some colleagues from the FDA, and we're kind of just exchanging, some observations and some work that that they're doing internal to their own organization. And there were a few things that kind of struck me. One is they've seen the number of products that have been designed by AI or have AI in them, either from a therapy standpoint or from a medical device standpoint, absolutely skyrocket. So the number of submissions that have AI in them or that were designed with AI has skyrocketed. They also have seen the number of submissions that have been generated by AI skyrocket as well. And so they've realized that if they don't get with the times and adopt artificial intelligence, they will become the bottleneck. Now, obviously, there's a lot of necessary things that a regulatory body and organization like the FDA has to do to ensure safety and privacy and all that stuff. And they certainly are thinking that. But it is, I would say, it's a boon to the industry, and it's taking place across the industry. It's not just call it the pharma companies or med device companies themselves. It's even the regulatory bodies that are realizing they have to adopt AI to keep with the times.
Yeah, actually, Rory, I just gave a talk a couple of weeks ago in Florida, and I looked up that number, and it's like 700 AI algorithms have been approved by the FDA for healthcare use alone. So, I mean, just being able to keep up with all that. And just to add to your original question, Matt, we have an entire practice that we are now building around securing AI and, using AI as security. So the way you started this question. And so I put in that compliance and regulatory components as well. So really, I mean, it's a whole discipline in and of itself, but there's obviously a great need for that. And we're doing a ton of work with clients around that space.
Yeah. All right. Well, last question for both of you, and Sanaz will ask you to start. So imagine that we're sitting down with some executives, some leaders from a life sciences organization, and they want to learn from us, key success factors, best practices, the way that they should approach all of the things they're pursuing relative to AI. So what counsel are you providing them, and how are you getting them excited to kind of continue moving forward with all of this?
Yeah, and I mean, we've got obviously clients at all ends of the journey, some that we're working with who are really pretty early on, whether it's because they're a smaller organization, pharmaceutical company, or they're more specialized in the type of therapeutics that they do. But, and then of course, to the large, global ones, the largest in the world. And so it just, varies, but there are things that are obviously very standard across the board. And I'd say sort of the WWT approach is, again, like tier one, just foundational considerations. Obviously, set that goal, but make sure the goal has measurable impact, and then measure that early and often. I think that's key. It's common sense, but we all get lost in the day-to-day, and we don't always follow through on that success metrics, that relentless driving of the metric measurements. Multidisciplinary AI teams, it's no longer an IT topic, right? It's across the BUs, and getting stakeholders from all of those different business units, as well as legal or compliance or commercial, whomever is going to ultimately be impacted by or have an impact to the technology, just getting them again early and often engaged. And then prioritization of these high impact use cases. It used to be that the end users and the business owners were sort of technology blockers, right? The cultural adoption in general, whether it's healthcare or life sciences. And now we have CIOs telling us that the pendulum has swung so far that they're getting inundated with requests for, AI tools, probably from democratization by Gen AI, in general. But so how do we create a process that's scalable to prioritize and standardize and then really, titrate out those high impact use cases? And that's really kind of our first approach. Tier 2, I think we already covered, which is really around the data readiness piece, data quality, governance, and all those things. And then sort of, in my mind, the third tier of sort of setting the foundation here to advance AI is, I think, something that maybe, again, WWT might be a bit at the forefront of doing, which is sort of that concept of data as a service. Because all of the things we just talked about, they're not a one and done, right? If you're expanding AI, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of reinvention of work and process. If you think about a global pharma R&D organization can produce up to 1 petabyte of data per day, it's a lot of work to recreate this every time you're taking on a new AI initiative. So this concept of creating a platform and a service for this data readiness and AI enablement piece where, the scalable AI solutions are in place and leveraged appropriately, like Rory was talking about, multi-hybrid cloud approach. Things like data ownership and data sharing when you're dealing with a lot of collaboration that requires, processes and protections and securities, those being more streamlined. And then giving the right user the right tool to be successful at whatever their AI journey is. Let's give them a hammer, not a rock for that nail. And then providing sort of actionable insights and forecasting to leadership to then sit back and assess, is this resource allocation working? Is this model of cloud working? Where are there opportunities to kind of tighten that in real time, as we go along? But Rory, I'm sure you've got a lot more content you can add to that.
Those are great pieces of advice, and I think lessons learned from being in the trenches with companies who are kind of going through this. I think I heard something from a chief technology officer at a leading pharmaceutical company that really stuck with me. And it goes along the lines of having a multidisciplinary approach, Sanaz, like you mentioned. And so this individual said, our strategy around AI is to build, buy, partner, and acquire. And so if we have the data and if we have the talent and it's core to our business, we're going to build that. If we have a need, but we have no specific talent or capabilities or requirement to own that IP, we are going to buy. If we have the data, but we don't have the talent or the capabilities in-house, we're going to partner externally. And if it's existential to our mission of our organization or can massively accelerate a strategic a growth initiative or success initiative for us, we will acquire. And so that really stuck with me because there's an entire ecosystem of whether it be drug discovery companies or consulting organizations or technology integration partners or technology partners themselves that can be incredibly valuable as a partner. And you don't have to do it alone, right? Like as a technology leader or as a business unit leader in a life sciences organization, I'm sure it can feel daunting, but there is so much momentum in this space and so many really great partners, such as WWT, who can really, kind of navigate you through this journey. And the only other thing I'll add is don't walk, run. I've been doing this for 15 years. In my career, I've never seen a technology shift that is advancing so fast than modern day artificial intelligence. And so, months are like years. And if you are behind, good luck catching up. And so I would just encourage everyone to take this seriously and run, don't walk.
Well, that is excellent counsel and thoughtful insights throughout the show here today. So Sanaz, Rory, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah. Hey, and thank you for joining us as well. Another great experts episode. And, this is one of 4 episodes that we're doing on the life sciences industry. And there's that and much, much more out on WWT.com. So if you enjoyed this, check out the other content that's out there. Please share some feedback with us. You may get a survey from us or just drop us an email and let us know how we did. And with that, we will wrap today's session. Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you next time.